friends, I'm Mrs. E. I'm so glad you joined me again today for next reading lesson. We will read together and learn together, and I hope that this will help you to be inspired and motivated to read a lot. Well, let's begin. In this lesson, our third lesson together, we are going to continue to explore our McCall's book, the informational text that we've been reading. Our learning target today is I will learn context clue strategies to figure out the meaning of an unknown word. In our success criteria, I can use the strategies to learn new words in the book McCall's. To review from last time, remember context clue strategies. Context clues are words that are around the unknown word that could help us understand or figure out the meaning of a word. And we are going to explore some other strategies today. In our acronym IDEAS, I-D-E-A-S, we're going to take a look at the letter I in IDEAS, which is inference, which is a conclusion that you can make based on what text says and what I know. And our second strategy that we'll take a look at is the E for example, and which in the text you'll be given examples of the word. So let's take a look at the inference strategy, which is to draw a conclusion or a conclusion that you can make based on what the text says and what I know. So here's an example. You don't need to worry about talking to your teacher. She is affable. What could this word affable mean? So I'm going to use the inference strategy. Let's see, what do I see here? What are some words? What are some clues in these sentences or in this text that gives me the clue about what this word affable means? What do you think? I am seeing some words, context clues like I don't need to worry about talking to your teacher, so don't need to worry, and I can talk to her, so she is affable. So I can infer, I can draw a conclusion that affable means easy to talk to and friendly. Here's another strategy, example. So we're going to look for some examples in the text to help us figure out the unknown word. In this case, my teacher is affable. He is nice to everybody. If you have a problem, you can talk to him. This one is giving us some examples what affable could mean or what the teacher does as an example of affable. He is nice to everybody. If you have a problem, you can talk to him. So these are examples like nice to everybody, and you can talk to him when you have a problem. So looking at the examples that are given, the examples given are nice to everybody, and you can talk to him. So I can conclude that affable means friendly and easy to talk to. So let's go ahead and take a look at our book called The McCall's. I'm going to go to Table of Contents, and the section or the chapter that we will be looking at today is called A McCall's Life Cycle, page 17. A McCall's Life Cycle. Wild macaws can live to be 45 years old. In zoos, these birds can live longer than many humans. They may live to be 70 years old. Macaws begin to mate when they are about 5 years old. Like most parrots, macaws stay with the same mate for life. Male and female pairs clean each other's feathers. They touch each other's beaks, They fly so close to each other that their wings almost touch. And I am also noticing right here the photo, and the caption of this photo is telling me these two macaws are cleaning each other's feathers. And just like what the text was saying is showing me in the photo. Not all female macaws lay eggs every year. When they do lay eggs, most females lay only 2 eggs per year. Sometimes these eggs do not hatch. If both eggs do hatch, only one chick usually lives to be an adult. The parents only feed one bird. It is either the first chick that hatches or the larger chick. Well, here's a word that I am not so sure what this word means. I'm going to take a closer look here. The word hatch. And it's mentioned in this paragraph. So I'm going to go back and do some close reading on this word. When they do lay eggs, most females lay only 2 eggs per year. Sometimes these eggs do not hatch. So I'm getting the context clue around here, around the word hatch. It has something to do with eggs. And it's something that says females are laying and also eggs. And it's talking about how it does not, it also could not hatch. If both eggs do not hatch, only one chick usually lives to be an adult. So I'm looking at context clues here. In my context clues, I'm seeing that eggs do not hatch, eggs do hatch, and then only one chick. So I'm noticing that there's an affiliation here with eggs, the chick, and it's hatching. When it hatches, you see a chick. And we see that parents feed the first chick that hatches. So I can conclude using my context clues that hatch must mean coming out of an egg. Let's go to the next page. A macaw's nest. Usually, the male and female pair builds a nest far from other macaws. They make nests in the holes of dead trees. They put bark and twigs on the bottom of the hole. As soon as the female lays her eggs, the pair stops being social. The pair must make sure that the other birds do not take over the nest. Females sit on their eggs from 12 to 35 days. During this time, the male hunts for food. He stores food in a pouch in his throat. He brings it back to the nest to share with the female. When the eggs hatch, break open, both parents take turns hunting for food and feeding the young. And I'm also noticing the photo that helps me to understand what I'm reading. And the caption, once again, it reads, "This female parrot," which is referring to this female parrot, "is sitting on eggs in her nest." So I know that this is a nest. Here's our subtitle, and it says young. So I know this is going to be about young parrots or the macaws. Macaws take care of their chicks for 2 to 3 years. Chicks are born blind, which means they can't see. Their eyes open after 9 to 16 days. Chicks are born without feathers. Fluffy feathers appear in about 3 weeks. These feathers are called down feathers. They are only for warmth. They are not for flying. They are not used for flying. Chicks are not very active. They eat, sleep, and grow. They beg for food by flapping their wings and screeching. They take partly digested fruit and nuts from their parents' mouths. They live in their nests from 2 to 4 months. Once they begin to fly, young macaws are called fledglings. Now, I am seeing in here in this paragraph a word that I don't know, the word active. The word is active, and I am wondering, what does this word active mean? In here, it says the chicks are not active. Well, so I can continue to read. It says the chicks are not very active. They eat, sleep, and grow. So I'm going to use my examples strategy. And in that sentence, it's giving me examples of what is not active. Because these chicks are not active, they eat, sleep, and grow. That's all they do. So I can infer that, well, if they're just sleeping, eating, and growing, they are not moving, there's no action involved. So therefore, I can conclude and figure out that this word must mean active, which involving action or movement. So in other words, they are not moving, or they're not moving, or there's not a lot of action from these chicks. So that's what active means. Let's go to the next paragraph. Young macaws are in danger from predators, reptiles, climbing cats, eagles, and other predators attack young macaws when they are in their nests. Once again, I'm going to go back. I see another new word or unknown word a word that I do not know, predators. So I'm going to take a closer look one more time. Predators. So I'm going to go back and reread. Young macaws are in danger from predators. Reptiles, climbing cats, eagles, and other predators attack young macaws when they are in their nests. Once again, I think I can use my example context clue strategy, because in this text, it's giving me list or examples of predators. It says reptiles, climbing cats, eagles, and these examples of predators, or other predators, they attack young macaws. So I know there's an attack, and it seems like they are in danger. Right here it says danger from predators. So I can conclude, I can figure out the meaning of predator. It must be an animal or an organism. Anything that is living, we call that organism. So it must be an organism or animals that mainly they get their food, obtain their food by killing other animals or other organisms. And that's what predator means. And you might be wondering, Mrs. E, where are you getting this definition? Well, after I figure out this word using context clue, I am going back and looking in the dictionary to confirm whether using the context clue and trying to figure out the word is correct or not. And so when I check the dictionary, I am right that it is predator. It's an animal that mainly obtains their food, get their food from killing other animals. And here is once again a photo. And this is a photo of a young macaw. So this photo is helping me understand what I'm reading. And my caption reads, "This is a young macaw. It is weak and unable to defend itself against predators." So once again, this also helps me to better understand what the word predator means. Macaws are social. Like these macaws, the birds usually fly together in groups. And this was a caption that I just read, and I am looking at the photo here, and I am noticing that there is more than one bird. There are 3 birds in this photo. And as the caption reads, it says, macaws are social. Like these macaws, the birds are usually flying together in groups. That's a macaw's day. Macaws are very social birds. They like to spend time together. Sometimes there are as many as 100 in a group. They make small clicking sounds to say hello to each other. They are only quiet when they eat or sleep. High in the canopy, the macaws are safe from many enemies. I'm going to go back and take a look at this word social. Macaws are social birds. So I'm wondering, and I'm going to try to figure out, what does the word social mean? Now, I got some kind of clues from this photo and the caption. I see that they fly together in groups. So I know that groups mean that there's more than one person. And I can go back and reread my text here. It says they like to spend time together. Sometimes there are as many as 100 in a group. So I am going to once again use my example strategy here, because it's giving me examples of what they do as being social birds. So they spend time together. There's 100 in a group. Another example is that they're only quiet when they eat or sleep. So from looking at these examples and reading these examples, I can conclude, I can figure out that the word social must mean that they live in a group or they depend on others. So they are social birds because they live in groups, they depend on others. They're just like being with other birds. Macaws rest in the shade during hot afternoons. They use their beaks to pick out dead feathers and parasites. A parasite, such as a tick, is an animal or plant that gets its food from another living thing. Well, so here's another word that I'm wondering about, and it is parasite. What is a parasite? In this sentence right here, a parasite such as a tick is giving me an example what a parasite is. Such as a parasite can be a tick. And that is an example of a parasite. It also tells me the definition right here of the parasite. It says a parasite is an animal or plant that gets its food from another living thing. So I just learned and figured out what the word parasite means. It is an animal or plant that gets its food from another living thing. Let's go back and visit our learning target to see how we did today. Our learning target was, I will learn context clue strategies to figure out the meaning of an unknown word. Our success criteria was, I can use the strategies to learn new words in the book Macaws. So we learned to use the context strategies of example strategy and the inference strategies. And we were able to learn these words using those strategies today: active, predators, social, hatch, parasite. And so great job today. And I hope you'll keep reading, and don't forget that reading is awesome.
Math with Mooney. We're doing division today. We did multiplication last time, or you might be going out of order, but either way, I'm so happy to see you. Like I mentioned, last time on Math with Mooney, we worked on multiplication. We worked on multi-digit multiplication to be specific. This time we're going to use our skills from last time to do division. Now there's this really specific kind of thing we're going to work on, and we're going to cover that right now. So let's go over our learning target and success criteria. Our learning target is I can find whole number quotients of multi-digit whole numbers using various methods. Okay, so quotients is kind of that vocab word, and we're going to work on that in a moment. And then your success criteria, our success criteria is I will find quotients of multi-digit whole numbers by using my prior knowledge of place value and inverse operation of division, which is otherwise known as multiplication. Let's talk about those vocabulary words though, so we really understand what we're talking about, all right? So I'm going to draw out some equations, and just like last time, I'm going to want you to take some screenshots. So let's take a look at this right here. So 10 is our dividend, 2 is our divisor, and 5 is our quotient. And quotient is like the answer, right? So 2 divided by 10, 5, right? The dividend is that number. So there's multiple ways to see multiplication problems, and I want you to be able to identify these vocabulary words while you're looking at it. So at this time, if you're on a computer, it would be best to take a screenshot. And if you're on the TV, maybe you can take a picture, I'm not sure. So again, when you see that computer, that means a screenshot. All right, let's cover another word that I put in your learning target. Inverse operation. What we're talking about is the opposite of division is multiplication. Okay, so in this case, 10 divided by 2, 5 times 2, 10. Okay, so we're talking about the opposite. So we're able to use multiplication to check our division answers. And that's what we're going to do today. And again, this is a really good time to take a screenshot. All right, let's do our warm up in a moment. Let's recap though a little bit about place value, okay? Because place value is going to come into your mind. You're going to have to remember it. So got the hundreds, tens, ones, and we're going into the thousands this time, okay? So let's use our previous knowledge, but let's start with a warm up first, okay? So first I want to identify there are steps to this multi-digit whole number division, okay? First you divide. Next, you multiply, then you subtract, and then you start back over again. Okay, so divide, multiply, subtract. I'm not a big fan of just memorization, but that is the order that you go in. Okay, so in this case, we're looking at, does 5 go into 2? No, it doesn't. Then we're going to look at 24. Does 5 go into 24? And if so, how many times? Yes, 4 times 5. So we've done the division. Now we're doing 4 times 5 is 20. And then look at step 3, says to subtract. So 24 minus 20 is 4. Then you bring down the 5 in the ones column, and that equals 45. And now you're going to go back up to divide again. 5 goes into 45 how many times? Yes, 9. Okay, and you can double check that. 9 times 5 is 45, right? And that's how you can kind of look at that. But let's kind of look at this in a deeper way, okay? So we're talking about numbers here, and I want you to really understand when we have 245, we're thinking about how many groups of 5s can we make. Now, I made it bigger because 10s are all double 5s. So how many groups of 5 out of 24. So how many groups of basically 200? So if we were counting, it'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, right? So yeah, there's 1 group of 50, 2 groups of 50, 3 groups of 50, and 4 groups of 50, which equals 200. Okay, and when we're looking at this, we're thinking, how many times does 5 go into 24? That's 20, so then we have 45 left. Now, I want you to kind of visualize what we have left, right? So we have these 10s right here, but you're going to want to cross off the 10s and make yourself an array with 5s so you can understand how you can divide 5 into 45. So now let's make an array of 5s. How many times does 5 go into 45? All right, so this 5 is that 5, and those 10s equaled those 5s. So 5, 45, 9. Yes. So we were able to kind of check it by drawing stuff out. Okay. Now I know it's going a little fast, and that's why you have, hopefully you can pause. Okay. Here's a quick break for a joke. Why did the kid always wear glasses during math class? I want you to try to be clever if you can. They improved division. Get it? Like they improved division, the vision, division. Anyway, I love it. Okay, let's try this one together. And in that, this is time to get your supplies. So I'm drawing out this picture. You're going to be getting your pencil, paper, notebook, whiteboard marker. So if you're on the TV, just hurry up and grab it. And if you're on the computer, you can press pause, which, you know, is kind of a bummer. And then I didn't say this last time, but don't forget your eraser. So whiteboard eraser or an eraser with your pencil, because we do make mistakes. That's just part of life. Okay, we're going to get started. So let's put our division, multiplication, subtraction kind of steps back up here. We're going to take a look at 37 divided by 2,960. Does 37 go into 2? No. Okay. Does 37 go into 29? Because 37 is bigger than 29. So now we're going to look at 296. Yes, 37 goes into 296, but I can't do that math in my head. So I'm going to use a skill that we talked about last time, and that was rounding. Okay, so I'm going to use rounding to estimate how many times 37 goes into 296. So 37 goes up to 40. That's right, because the 7 is more than 5. Remember, we worked on that last time. And then the 296, yes, it goes up to 300. Absolutely, because we're looking at the biggest place value there. And we go up to 300. So now we're talking about 40 divided by 300. How many times does 40 go into 300, basically? Okay, so I'm going to take it down to 30 divided by 4, right? And I know 4 times 8 is 32, but 32 is too much. So then I'm going to say, okay, well, what about 4 times 7? 4 times 7 is 28. Yeah, 28 is smaller, so we're going to use the 7. And remember, I'm using my skills of 10 times as many when I did the 4 and the 30. So 7 times 40 is 280, right? And you can do 7 times 4 is 28. Oh, 280. Then what do you have left? You have 20. And you know you can't 4 into 20 evenly because we're working with whole numbers, not decimals yet. So we're going to use the 7 to figure out our next problem. That's going to give us a starting point. Okay, so now let's get really specific and do the specific math. Okay, so I'm going to take 37 times 7 to make sure that I know I can do my first step. Okay, and 7 times 7 is 49. 7 times 2, 3 is 21. 21 plus 4 is 25. Now, what I'm noticing here is I feel like 37 can go into 259 at least one more time. It kind of looks like it can. I'm going to check though. So I'm going to take my 259, add it to 37. Let's see what we have. Oh my gosh, 296, that's exactly right. So that's 7 that I used to figure it out. That's not going to work for us because we're working with an 8 now, right? Because we said 37 times 8 was 296. So now we're going to use that and we're going to subtract 296 from that first part of the 2,960 and we have 0. Now we have to bring down the other 0 because the 0 is significant. Remember, it's in the place value of ones. So we need to add 0 because 37 divided by 0 is 0. We need to add the 0 down there and now we have 80. So our answer is 80. Okay, so let's check our answer now. Okay, let's go to that inverse operation, which is multiplication. Why are we doing that? Because we said we would, okay? We said today we would not only be working on division, but we would be working using the place value and inverse operation of division, which is multiplication, okay? So let's take our answers, 80 and 37, and make that our multiplication problem. Now, if you remember from earlier, we're going to take the quotient and the divisor, and we're going to multiply that. Now, in my head, I can't do 37 times 80, but maybe I can do 37 times 8 equals times 10 times as many, or maybe I want to use this array. Sometimes you'll hear it's called box multiplication, but it's actually called a rectangular array. Okay, you can use any of those methods, but for today, I'm just going to do 2 by 2 multiplication, which is something that we worked on last time. Okay, so 7 times 80 is 560, 3 times 80 is 2,400, and that equals 2,960. Okay, this might be a good time to take a screenshot because again, this is kind of the different methods that you can use. Okay, so I want to know how you're feeling because this is such a long process. I completely understand. So right now, if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't remember learning this at all, and you don't understand at all, you're a 1. If you're a 5, oh yeah, I got this. I can teach someone. Okay, and somewhere in between. Okay, so how you feeling? All right, here's our next joke. We have a teacher, and the teacher is like looking at a student. He's like, why are you doing multiplication on the floor? So what do you think? So are you catching on that puns have to do with like the answer? So the teacher asks, why are you doing multiplication on the floor? And the student says, you told me not to use tables. Get it? Like, okay, so if you're sitting at a desk, it's like a table, but also multiplication table. And do you remember last time? Not only did I say don't use tables, I said use your tables. If you need multiplication tables, use it. Please use your tools because this is difficult work here. And if you're getting caught up in the multiplication, it's going to hold you back. Okay? All right, so here is your question. And I'm going to have you try on your own. I know that it seems kind of fast, but we're going to work on it again, so don't worry about it. If you have a computer, go back and rewatch the process. Remember those processes, but I'm going to have you work. I'm going to give you 3.5 minutes to work on this because I also want you to check using your multiplication to check your answer. All right? If you're on a computer, you may pause. If you're on TV or even on the computer, you have 2.5 minutes from this time. Remember, if you're on the computer, you can go back. You can pause and go back in the video and see the process again. If you're on TV, you still have some time, so no worries. Now, if you're starting to finish your division problem, this would be a really good time to take your quotient and your dividend and multiply. Okay, this is the time where I start saying spoiler alert, so it's going to go kind of fast. Here's the answer, okay? So 62 into 353 is the first thing I'm going to do. First thing I thought of is, okay, how can I find out how many times 62? So I did 62 times 2, 124. 124 times 2 is 248, plus another one, another 62 is 310. So I did 5 times 62, which is 310. What I had left over was 434. So the 43, and I brought down the 4. Now I'm thinking, how many more times does 62 go into 434? And I was like, okay, 310 plus 124 is, so I did 7 times 6, which is, yes. So it came out to 434. So now I'm going to check my multiplication. 62 times 57. And so I got 434, 3,100, and that equaled 3,534, which was the same as my number inside. Okay. So that's how I know that I did. Okay. So how did you do? So again, we were working on the inverse operation, and I would like you to take a moment and rate yourself again. Okay, so it's really important to kind of see your progression. If you were a 1 last time and now you're a 2, great, right? If you were a 4 and now you're a 3, that's okay too, because you felt more confident, but you're going to keep it going. Now, you all know what this is. This is going to be a spoiler or a cliffhanger of a question. So why did the triangle make the basketball team over the square? Thank you so much for joining me. I'm sorry I leave you with a cliffhanger, but I do want you to come back next week for another video on multi-digit whole number division, because we have more work to do. This was kind of quick, and in a class we would take much longer. So please join me next time. Bye.
Hola chicos, bienvenidos a otra clase de mate. Sé que están bien emocionados para seguir con nuestras lecciones. En los últimos videos hablábamos de multiplicación. Ahora vamos a hablar de división, pero vamos a estar multiplicando, ¿ok? Entonces, o sea, si no quieres multiplicar, pues malas noticias. Vamos a estar multiplicando y resolviendo problemas de división. También vamos a estar estimando a las decenas, ¿ok? Entonces, yo creo que hicimos un repasito de los últimos videos, si quieres ir a verlos, de cómo estimar. Eso va a ser importante para la lección de hoy. Deben de tener un lápiz, un papel, algo con que puedes escribir y hacer el trabajo tú, ¿ok? Porque, o sea, yo sé cómo hacerlo, les estoy ayudando, ¿ok? Entonces saco un papel, un lápiz y vamos a empezar a trabajar con algo que se llama operaciones inversas, ¿ok? No sé si ustedes han escuchado alguna vez esa frase, pero vamos a verlo con división, multiplicación, vamos a hacer un poco de todo, hasta estimación también. ¿Ok? Qué divertido, ¿verdad? Okay. ¿Cómo puedes usar la multiplicación para resolver cada ecuación de división? ¿Ok? Ustedes pueden poner pausa ahora. Seguramente ustedes ya saben cuál es la respuesta. Si no, pon pausa, toma un momento, piénsalo. ¿Ok? Ok, muy bien. Si hacemos 30 entre 10, ya sabemos que eso va a ser 3, ¿verdad? 24 entre 12, simplemente 2, ¿verdad? A ver, podemos arreglar esos números aquí para tener una ecuación de multiplicación que tenga sentido, obviamente, ¿verdad? ¿Qué pueden hacer? Toma un momento, pon pausa, piénsalo. Ok, vamos a ver. Ahora, si pusiste 10 por 3 es 30. Correcto, muy bien. Y vamos a ver, entonces eso va a ser 12 por 2 es igual a 24. Eso tiene sentido, ¿verdad? Ve cómo tuvimos que mover, tuvimos que cambiar unos números para usar una multiplicación, ¿ok? Entonces ahorita vamos a seguir practicando con eso, con un problema un poquito más difícil, ¿no? ¿Ok? No todos pueden ser tan fácil, ¿verdad que no? Entonces, vamos a seguir en adelante con una pregunta aquí. Ustedes otra vez, los voy a leer la pregunta, ¿ok? Luego vamos a ver esas preguntas aquí abajo. Ustedes pueden tomar un momento para pensarlo y para ver cómo vamos a resolver ese problema. Ok, hay 92 estudiantes de quinto grado en la escuela media Wilson y 23 estudiantes en cada salón de quinto grado. ¿Cuántos salones de quinto grado hay en la escuela media Wilson? ¿Ok? ¿Sobre qué trata este problema? Estoy viendo esas preguntas aquí. ¿Qué es lo que hay que averiguar? Fíjense, chicos, averiguar dice, no queremos, no necesitamos la respuesta exacta, ¿ok? Estamos usando estimaciones para averiguar, ¿ok? ¿Cuántos, en ese caso, cuántos salones de quinto grado hay en la escuela? ¿Ok? Entonces, no tenemos que saber exactamente, pero vas a ver, ya que hacemos los problemas, que cuando empezamos con la estimación, es fácil resolver el problema, ¿ok? ¿Y qué información es importante, ok? A ver, tome un momento, pueden poner pausa si quieren para ver y vamos a tratar de contestar esas preguntas, ¿ok? Yo voy a empezar con ese de qué información es importante. Pues estamos haciendo un problema de palabras, ¿verdad? Problema razonado. Entonces, lo importante, obviamente, números, ¿verdad? Tenemos 92 estudiantes de quinto grado, aquí dice, y 23 en cada salón, ¿ok? En cada salón. A ver, ya ustedes deben de saber que cuando se esa palabra cada, estamos pensando en un problema de división, ¿ok? Eso es una palabra clave. ¿Cuántos salones de quinto grado hay en la escuela media Wilson? Entonces, ¿cómo vamos a hacer nuestro problema de división? Pues va a ser 92 entre 23, ¿no? Ok, vamos a escribirlo. Perdón, mi letra, mi escritura no es tan bonito, pero así es, ustedes entienden. Entonces vamos a hacer ese problema aquí. Pues eso no es muy fácil, ¿verdad que no? Un poquito difícil. Pero ¿qué tal si usamos una estimación? ¿Qué podemos hacer para que sea más fácil? Una pregunta. Vamos a cambiar 90 o podemos estimar o redondear Ok, el 92 o 23, ¿qué va a ser más fácil? Creo que el 23, ¿ok? Vamos a ver ahorita. Aquí tenemos cuánto es 92 entre 23, ¿ok? Vamos a ver. Vamos a cambiarlo a 20, ¿sí? A 93 entre 20. ¿Podemos usar una multiplicación? Tal vez. Ustedes pueden cambiar la posición de los números. ¿Qué pueden hacer? Chicos, ¿qué pueden hacer? ¿Qué tal si hacemos eso? 20 por un número es igual a 93. Ya hacemos una estimación, ¿no? O sea, eso es mi forma de hacerlo. Vamos a mostrar varios. Yo voy a hacer, ok, pues 20 por, ¿qué es 20? 20 por 1 es 20, ¿verdad? No tenemos que escribir eso. 20 por 2, ya saben, muy bien. 40. Luego, ¿qué sigue? Vamos a cambiar ese número de 2. Entonces, ahorita hacemos, y si tú ya sabes, si tú ya estás diciendo, pues yo sé qué es, excelente, no tiene que escribir todo eso, pero como es la primera vez, voy a explicarlo muy bien. Vamos a hacer 20 por 3. ¿Y qué es 20 por 3? Ah, fácil. 60. Pues estamos un poquito más cerca, pero todavía no hemos llegado al punto, ¿verdad? Vamos a intentar con, ustedes deben saber, ¿sí? 4, ve cómo vamos, 2, 3, 4, ¿ok? Vamos a intentar hacer 20. 20 por 4 es 80, muy bien. Ajá. Pues ya estamos más cerca, ¿no? O sea, tenemos 92, ay, perdón, 92 alumnos. Eso debe decir 92. Tenemos 92 alumnos, ¿verdad? Y tenemos aquí en 4 salones, 20 alumnos más o menos. Pues, ¿qué tal si multiplicamos por 5? ¿Qué vamos a tener? Vamos a tener un número más grande, ¿verdad? Si hacemos 20 por 5, ¿qué es 20 por 5? ¿Qué es 2 por 5? 10. Y luego agrego mi 0, ¿verdad? Entonces, si yo llego aquí, que ese 100 es mayor de la cantidad de alumnos aquí, ¿verdad? Que es 92. Es demasiado, ¿no? Entonces vamos a hacer el 4. Ahora, ¿qué hacemos? ¿Cómo podemos usar la multiplicación para llegar a nuestra respuesta? ¿Cuántos alumnos había? 23, ¿verdad? Y se supone que hay 4 salones. Pues vamos a ver. Vamos a hacer 23 por 4. A ver, chicos, ¿qué es 23 por 4? ¿Ok? Obviamente ustedes saben cómo hacerlo. Podemos hacerlo así. 23. Eso es como a mí me gusta hacerlos. 23 por 4. 4 por 3 es 12. Pongo mi 1 aquí. Y 4 por 2 es 8 más 1. 92. 92 alumnos. Tenemos 92 aquí. 23 por 4 es 92. Entonces, ahorita hicimos una división usando multiplicación. Porque si te fijas aquí, multiplicación, multiplicación, multiplicación. O sea, todas partes, no hicimos ni una división, pero ya sabemos que 92 entre 23 es 4. Muy bien, vamos a ver un ejemplo, ¿ok? Excelente, chicos. Ok, vamos a ver un ejemplo de cómo resolver otro problema, ¿ok? Sigue adelante. La multiplicación y la división se llaman operaciones inversas, ¿ok? Porque cada uno anula a la otra. Por ejemplo, las ecuaciones de multiplicación y división relacionadas. 5 por 7 pues es igual a 35, ¿verdad? Ya sabemos eso. Y 35 entre 5 es igual a 7. Muestran que si se multiplica un número por 5 y luego si se divide el resultado por 5, se termina con el número con el que se empieza. Ok, lo que quiere decir es que, o sea, aquí 5 por 7 es igual a 35, ¿verdad? Y luego vamos a dividir ese 35 entre 5, ¿sí? Es igual a 7, ¿ok? Es operaciones inversas. Están diciendo que con esos mismos, o sea, 3 números podemos hacer una multiplicación y una división. Entonces, si tú te sientes más cómodo haciendo multiplicaciones, ya tenemos una manera de averiguar, o sea, estimar unas ecuaciones de división usando multiplicación, ¿ok? Entonces, aquí es, o sea, ustedes pueden dibujar los cuadritos si quieren cuando ustedes están haciendo ese trabajo solitos, lo que vamos a hacer en la siguiente lección. Multiplico de 10, a ver, aquí tenemos, perdón, las ecuaciones relacionadas 264 entre 12 y 12 por un número es igual a 264. Puedes usar la ecuación de multiplicación relacionada para ayudarte a dividir. Vamos a ver, ¿ok? Empieza por hacer una lista de productos del divisor 12 y los múltiplos de 10. Ok, a ver, ¿cómo llegamos a esos números, verdad? O sea, aquí tenemos un 12, ¿sí? Y vamos a multiplicarlo por 10. ¿Por qué? Porque es más fácil, ¿verdad? O sea, 12 por 15 ya tengo que pensar, ¿verdad? La cosa es que queremos poder hacer mate mental. Entonces, vamos a multiplicar 12 por 10, fácil, 120. Aquí, 12 por 20. Si quieren poner pausa al video, ustedes pueden llenar esas cajitas solitos, ¿ok? Pero vamos a hacerlo juntos también, ¿ok? 12 por 20. Pues, ¿qué es 12 por 2? Es 24, ¿verdad? Entonces, aquí vamos a poner 240, ¿ok? Fíjense, 264 es nuestro producto, ¿ok? Eso es donde queremos llegar. Entonces, vamos a multiplicar 12 por 3. ¿Qué es? 360, ¿verdad? A ver, pues, o sea, ese 264 está entre esos dos números, ¿verdad? Entonces se supone que la respuesta va a ser entre esos dos números, ¿verdad que sí? No tenemos que hacer esos dos, pero vamos a practicar, ¿no? ¿Qué es 12 por 4? 12 por 4. 12 por 4. Va a ser 480, ¿verdad? Entonces, ya sabemos, eso es muy alto, no es muy relevante de lo que estamos haciendo, pero siempre se puede practicar, ¿no? Y 12 por 5, lo que es 12 por 50, va a ser 60 y agregamos un 0, va a ser 600, ¿sí? Ok. Entonces, ese 40, ese 50, los voy a quitar porque son demasiado, ¿verdad? Mi respuesta, se puede ver, va a ser entre 20 y 30, ¿ok? Y eso es la respuesta aquí, que fila de la tabla de arriba se relaciona con el dividendo de 264 entre 12. ¿Y cómo podrías usar la tabla? Pues ya decimos que nuestra respuesta va a ser entre 20 y 30. Y aquí es como usar unas cajitas para averiguar, ¿ok? Averiguar la respuesta, ¿ok? Entonces aquí es 12 por, y usamos un múltiplo de 10, escogimos 20, ¿no? Porque como en el último problema, si tenemos la respuesta demasiado alta no va a funcionar esa estrategia. Entonces, eso es bajito. Entonces, 12 por 20, 240. Ahorita vamos a multiplicar, o sea, tal vez mate mental, tú puedes ver la diferencia, 264 menos 240, que va a ser ¿cuánto? 24, ¿no? Entonces, ahora 12, o sea, 24 entre 12 va 2 veces y nuestra respuesta es 22. ¿Ok, chicos? Bueno, vamos a terminar la lección de hoy aquí y en la siguiente lección vamos a seguir trabajando con esos números. Vamos a practicar unos problemas de división. ¿Ok? Si quieres repasar unas cosas, puedes regresar a esa parte del video. ¿Ok? Nos vemos la siguiente vez. Suerte.